everybody. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome back to Dr. Pitt's Tips Live. I am Dr. Lauren Pitts Bounds. For those of you that celebrate Christmas, I hope you had an amazing Christmas, that you're enjoying this holiday season with family, friends, and other loved ones. I want to talk to you tonight about contentious co-parenting. And I want to put the disclaimer out there to you that if you're overly sensitive, if you have difficulty taking accountability and responsibility for your behavior, if you're immature, this session is definitely for you, but chances are I'm going to piss you off or hurt your feelings or both, so you may want to not tune in. Here's the thing, I've said to you time and time again that what prompts the topics that I discuss in my lives and even on my podcast are themes that I see coming up in the therapeutic room when I'm working with my clients, or things that I've experienced or see other people that I love and care about experiencing in their relationships. And this contentious co-parenting situation is one that grates on all of my nerves at the same time for a variety of reasons, which I'm going to sort of interject while I'm walking you through this discussion tonight. There's a couple of things that I want to put on your radar, and like I said, if you're overly sensitive, then you probably should log off now because I'm coming raw. Matter of fact, I forgot to tell you in my disclaimer that I'm going to try my level best to keep my language professional and appropriate. However, I might slip up and need you to pray for me because this is a topic that I am extremely, extremely passionate about, and I get fired up. I get fired up about it because, quite frankly, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of seeing it, and I'm gonna get into that in a minute. It reminds me of a conversation that I had with one of my aunts when I was 12 years old. We were having the one of the life talks, and she said, and I'm gonna not use the expletives because it's not appropriate to say it the way she said it, but she said, just because you're effing them don't mean you have to have kids with them. And I was like, Auntie, what you mean? What you saying? She was like, you heard me. Just because you doing the do with them doesn't mean that you have to have children with them. The other thing that I think that is really important to note as we dive into this discussion is that each of us is the common denominator in every relationship that we find ourselves in. So, of course, in the context of this conversation, we're going to talk about what that looks like within an intimate relationship where children have been produced, or if you're in a situation where you don't have any biological children, but you find yourself with an intimate partner who has children with someone else, and now you're being subjected to all of the drama that goes into them having a contentious co-parenting relationship. What fueled me wanting to address this topic was when someone told me the other day that the 13-year-old child in their life who, if I can just say it this way, the child is being poisoned by their mother and their maternal grandmother, and the child who treats her father like a dog said that she is part of the man hater club. Now, did I mention that this child is 13? This child is 13, and she is being taught by her mother and her mother's mother that it's okay to hate men. What the expletive? Seriously? That's what we're doing? And, oh, by the way, she's 13. And then it was further shared with me that one of the comments that was made to the child's mother by the grandmother was that the mother wasn't nearly as good a mother as she should be in rearing the daughter because you still dealing with this expletive in the courts, and I developed mastery at keeping your father away from you. What the expletive? Seriously? That's what we doing? I'm gonna need to take some deep breaths tonight, because when I say this pisses me off. Now, let me just tell you, let me give you a little bit of backstory real quick for those of you who don't know Dr. Pitts and how transparent I am. I am 56 years of age, and I've never met my biological father. And I will never meet my biological father because he passed away. So I just found out in 2022. He passed away back in 2004. Now, there's a number of explanations as to why he was not permitted to be an active part of my life. But the reality of it is that he was not permitted to be an active part of my life. And in my youth, I didn't understand that, and it damaged me. And, I don't think that my mom would object to me speaking the truth, because I was raised to tell the truth or not say anything at all. And for many, many years, conversation about him was off limits in my home. So I grew up feeling like an entire part of my existence was missing. I grew up feeling like half of a person because I didn't know him. And don't get it twisted, I am a daddy's girl. My relationship with my stepfather is absolutely positively out of this world. It is phenomenal. I love him to schmeezes. He is everything to me. And quite frankly, I say stepfather to you all, but I don't refer to him. He's my daddy. He's always been my daddy. But there were times where my relationship with him was infringed upon because of discord that was going on between he and my mom. So what does that look like when you're in a contentious parenting relationship? First and foremost, you have to look at individually, because what I hear a lot in my line of work and what I've seen in my personal life is folk are real quick to talk trash on their baby daddies, and they're real quick to talk trash on their baby mamas, but nobody wants to take responsibility or accountability for the fact that you chose to be in a relationship with that person. Here's the other disclaimer. I'm not talking about those situations or circumstances where someone was sexually assaulted, a child was produced, and the decision was made to keep the child and rear the child. I'm not talking about those situations. Those are extenuating circumstances. I'm talking about situations and circumstances where you laid down, and whether the condom broke or not, folks said, Dr. Pitts, I didn't put this in my oops baby. No, you didn't have an oops baby. If you didn't use protection, because there's more stuff on the market today than there is or have been in the history of mankind. If you didn't take appropriate precautions to not have children, then you plan to have a baby. That's just the nature of what happens when two people have sex. So let's keep that what that is the truth. So you have a pattern of angry projection of responsibility for the conflicts onto the other parent. In other words, everything is their fault. You take no responsibility or accountability for the fact that you made a conscious decision to kick it with this person, to have unprotected sex or whatever type of sex it was you had, and now you have a child. And can I just go there? Can I just go there? I want to speak to all the folk that had one baby, then had another baby, then had another baby and another baby and another baby. How many other babies you got beyond the one? And something in your brain said that everything is just going to miraculously, you're going to wave that wand and everything's going to be peaches and cream, and having all these daggone babies is somehow going to make it okay. But you still dogging the person. You dogging the person, he this, he that, he the third, yak, this, that, and the third, yada, yada, yada. You got 3, 4, 10 baby daddies and the whole 9 yards. And don't get it twisted. I'm not judging you or criticizing. You can have as many baby daddies as you want. You can have as many baby mamas as you want. But don't F the kids up. Because you don't strap up and because you don't know how to close your legs. How about that? Can we have that adult conversation today? I think we need to. Because guess what? Dr. Pitts has spent time in my career working with these babies that are all screwed up because the parents have this contentious co-parenting relationship. The other issue that we have, that we see, that's sort of fueling these contentious parenting situations, is there's a pattern of repeated broken conflictual relationships due to personal deficiencies. Can I emphasize that? Personal deficiencies in problem solving, maintaining a trusting relationship, or choosing abusive or dysfunctional partners. You know how many times I'm working with couples and one member or both members of the couple tells me that everybody that they dealt with cheated on them? For real? You don't see nothing wrong with that picture? It's always the other person's fault. You don't have any responsibility or accountability for the fact that you keep hooking up with folk that don't know how to be faithful. It reminds me, it was my senior year in high school. My mom and I were having a conversation, and like so many, and I'm not even going to say black mamas, just wounded, broken women, period, think that all men are dogs, because, I've always been an alpha. So I said respectfully, well, mommy, are all men dogs, or do you just keep picking doggy men? Well, of course, that didn't go over well, but that's okay, because it was the truth. And I wasn't even a clinician then. I was 18 years old, senior in high school. So, are all men dogs, or do you keep picking doggy men? Are all women hoes, or do you just keep picking ho-fied chicks? You got to take some responsibility and accountability for your contribution to the relationship discord that results in co-parenting contention and discord and strife when you have these innocent children that didn't ask to be born. Let's talk about some parenting stuff that comes into play that fuels this contentious parenting. Do you struggle to control your emotions in response to your child's behavior? Are you that parent that reminds your child that they just like they sorry behind mama and they just like they sorry behind daddy? You know, that sorry behind mama that you chose to lay down with and have kids with? That sorry behind daddy that you chose to lay down and have kids with? Oh, they sorry now. Are they sorry because they sorry? Or are they sorry because they don't want you no more? Those are the types of conversations that we need to have. Because when I tell you, I am sick and tired of folk behaving irresponsibly and screwing their kids up and acting like it's everybody else's fault but their own. I'm sick of it. I am sick and tired of seeing it. I'm sick and tired of hearing it. Is there increased conflict with the other parent because they've moved on? They have, they upgraded. They upgraded and they with somebody that maybe looks better than you, has a better job, drives a better car, lives in a better neighborhood, better house, dress, whatever the case may be. Or maybe it's not that at all. Maybe it's just you're insecure and you're a shattered fraction of a human being because you won't do the psychological and the spiritual self-work that is needed to heal from your unresolved childhood issues. So now these innocent babies are being victimized by the fact that they have two broken parents who want to fight like dogs in the street and put the kids in the middle. Oh, here's one. Are you overindulging your child to make it easier to use them as a pawn? You're the mama or you're the daddy that does everything for them. You know your daddy ain't did nothing for you. You know I paid for this and I paid for that and I paid for the other. You know your mama ain't did this, she ain't did that, she ain't did the other. You know she this, that, and the third, he this, that, and the third. Don't you know that child is half you and half them? Don't you know that every single solitary time you attack that other parent, in essence, you're attacking your child? Every time you do that, you're diminishing your child's sense of self. You don't know that? You should know that. Because psychologically, that's what you're doing to your baby. Do you display a pattern of harsh, rigid, and demeaning behavior towards your child? Did I tell y'all I have a violent streak? I do. Haven't it? It's been under control since I was 25 years of age. I'm 56. But there are things that make the hair stand up on the back of my neck, even though my neck is faded out, that make my head want to pop off. Because you talk about something, and you ask folk that know me personally, anybody will tell you Nani, because that's what my family call me. That's what people who know me call me, Nani. Nani will lose her mind if she finds out that you are verbally, emotionally, or physically abusing your kid. And oh, by the way, Nani's a mandated reporter. I've called DIFUS on my own family. I've called DIFUS on friends. You are not going to abuse, neglect, or mistreat children on my watch. It is emotional and verbal abuse to say to your child who did not ask to be born, you're blue, all these expletives, just like your blue mom and your blue dad. Are you crazy? Have you lost your ever-loving mind? And you know what people tell me? I mean, Dr. Pitts, I just can't help it. And my parents decided, skirt, hold up. So when you were at the crossroads of life, you recalled that when you were abused, neglected, and mistreated, that you didn't like it. It hurt you to the core of your soul when your parents abused, neglected, and mistreated you. But you turn right around and do the same thing to your own children. I don't have no sympathy for you. I don't have no empathy for you, and I don't have no patience for you. You probably shouldn't come to me for therapy. I'm just keeping it real with you, because I'm going to kick your back in. I don't know if you heard, I don't violate ethics, but I'm not the most orthodox clinician, because I want people to actually heal. And how do I get you to heal? How do I support your healing? I hold you accountable. I get you to look in the mirror. I get you to take responsibility and accountability for your own dysfunction, for your own woundedness. This is in no way, shape, form, or fashion excusing the fact that you have been abused, neglected, or mistreated. My heart goes out to you if you have unresolved trauma. What you gonna do about it? You gonna make your child a victim like you were? You don't want your children to have better? You don't want to meet that other parent in a place of common humanity with an open mind and an open heart? Or are you going to project all your unfinished business onto that other parent because you got all this baggage that you didn't deal with before you started having kids? There's two ways that we can go about resolving this problem. You have a strategic approach to problem solving that can sort of tease out the co-parenting discord and contention. The strategic approach to problem solving in the co-parenting relationship addresses the issues at hand. I professionally and personally don't like that approach because I don't think that it addresses the emotional element or the root of the problem that's going on in the co-parenting relationship and or in the children if you have children that are demonstrating behavioral problems. But in this strategic approach to problem solving in a contentious co-parenting situation, you gotta exchange information about the needs and how you're each viewing the priorities of the situation. You have to be willing to share your concerns about whatever it is that's going on, but here's the disclaimer. You have to be willing to do that without blaming and scapegoating the other parent. You have to be willing to look for solutions. We can talk about the problems all day, every day. We really can. We know what's wrong. You know what's wrong. You might not know the root of it, but that's where couple, marriage, and family therapists, mental health practitioners, LCSWs, that's where those of us that are in behavioral mental health and that study relationships and human behavior for a living, can be helpful. But you know what so many of you say? Well, go on in this house, stay in this house. We ain't going to therapy because I don't want nobody all up in our business. But you staying effed up. You're just walking dysfunction, and it's generational. It's just transmitted. You belligerent, obnoxious, and nasty. Your 3-year-old belligerent, obnoxious, and nasty. Your 8-year-old belligerent, obnoxious, and nasty. Your 12-year-old belligerent, obnoxious, and nasty. Your 16-year-old belligerent, obnoxious, and nasty, and screwing everything that ain't nailed down. When do we break the cycle? When do we take ownership and responsibility for the dysfunction and say, you know what? It's bad enough that I had to go through all of this and endure all this craziness. I'm going to make it my personal business to not have this be my children's story. I'm going to use the adversities of my life as stepping stones to more and different and better for my children. I'm going to be a stronger, healthier, better version of myself so that I can parent in the most healthiest way possible so that my kids aren't victims. The second approach to problem solving in these relationship issues is clinically what we call social psychological. It's an emotional approach. It is going to look at attitudes and emotions and the blind spots that you have in your parenting approaches. In other words, you got to own your junk. You got to own your BS. You got to own your stuff. You have to stop. You said, you did, you sorry, you this, you that, you the other. And you got to look in the mirror. And you have to own your contribution to this contentiousness, your contribution to the discord. You have to be willing to do that. You have to look at the psychological factors fueling the conflict. And you have to be willing to have adult, mature, responsible conversations about the barriers that are hindering two people who made a conscious decision to lay down and have sex, and this child or these children were produced. Well, what are some of those barriers, Dr. Pitts? I'm so glad you asked. Pride, fear, insecurity, immaturity, unforgiveness, unresolved childhood trauma, jealousy, envy. Shall I go on? You get the gist. I don't have to go on. You can't be accusatory or critical. Not if you want to have positive results. It is going to require each of you to demonstrate mutual empathy, compassion, and authentic concern for the well-being of your babies. It ain't all about y'all. It ain't about you, mama. It ain't about you, daddy. It's about these babies. It's about these babies. So what should we do? How do we, you know what, Dr. Pitts, it's all type of expletived up, and we don't know how to fix it. And just, I'm going to say this as a side note to my social media manager because she's on here. I'm not finishing at 7:30. I'm going to go about 10 minutes over because I need to get this off my chest because it's getting on my nerves. So I'm going to allow 5 minutes or so, 7 minutes at the end, about 20 of, for any questions that anybody wants to ask, and I will do my level best to address those questions. So what do we do, Dr. Pitts? You have to commit. I guess I did say commit. You have to commit to having mature, responsible, open dialogue about how to parent effectively. Everything is not going to be your way. You're not going to get your way all the time. There has to be compromise. There has to be a willingness to do what's in the best interest of the kids. And here's the newsflash. It might be inconvenient for you sometime. It might be inconvenient. As I reflect upon when my son's father and I were co-parenting, he was out on the West Coast in grad school, and my son and I were residing in Florida, and he would come to visit. And I know I'm not telling y'all to do what we did. I'm just saying this was our formula and it worked. The priority was my son. The priority was our son. So when he came in town, he stayed at our house with our son and slept in our guest bedroom. When he came in town, he didn't have to rent a vehicle. He drove one of my vehicles. Dr. Pitts, you crazy. No. I'm wise. Because it was never about me and it was never about him. It was about what was in the best interest of our son. And my brain said, if he ain't spending money on a hotel, if he ain't having to spend money on a rent-a-car, that's more financial resources that can be allocated for our son. How about that? Look at that. And it wasn't about nothing. We did things together with our son. And it wasn't like we didn't have disagreements, because we did. There were times that we went to activities frustrated and pissed off with each other, wanting to knock each other in the head and bury each other in the backyard. But we made a commitment in our youth, because he was 18 and I was 19 when we got pregnant with our son. We made a commitment that we were going to do what was in the best interest of our child no matter what. And that's what we did. And that's what we still do. And he about to be 36. But that's what we still do. You have to be willing, particularly when your children are old enough, that there's actual rules that need to be instilled in the children's lives as far as discipline. You have to be consistent in your rules. You got kids, I'm telling you, clinically, psychologically, research shows that children have much healthier well-being when there's routine and structure. There's no room for the good cop, bad cop. Oh, you get to do whatever you want to do and act like a puppet when you at daddy's house, and you got rigid rules at mom's. Nah, y'all need to be able to talk about that so that you're doing what's in the best interest of the child holistically, not worrying about trying to pit the child against the other parent. Positive talk. There's never been a time that I have ever spoken an unkind word to my son about his father. Even when he did things that I didn't agree with or whatever the case may be, I did not badmouth him to our son. But a lot of you do that. A lot of you bash your children's other parent and think that that doesn't psychologically and adversely impact your child. Again, you're bashing a part of them. You are poisoning your child against the other parent. There has to be positive talk. You should not be degrading, demeaning, belittling, or disrespecting the other parent. And here's the news flash: you shouldn't be allowing your child to do it either. Your 16-year-old shouldn't be saying, he is sorry, no. That's conditioning. It's teaching the judgmental and the critical behavior without even looking at the root. Why is this dysfunctional or abusive partner that you chose to lay down and have a child or children with behaving the way they are? Because they have personal deficiencies, and he looked so good and sure was so fat and this, that, and you just had to have each other, and the sex was all that, and the soda to rebate, and the bag of chips, and now y'all hate each other. But you got these 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10 kids. For real? You didn't think that all of the superficial stuff that brought y'all together was going to shift? She cheating, she hoeing, he hoeing, everybody hoeing. Ho, 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 Merry Christmas. You ain't know? You have to be willing to create a co-caregiver alliance. In other words, you have to be able to agree on boundaries and behavior guidelines. You have to make a conscious decision to get on the same page of the same book with the other parent. Here's one that a lot of people don't talk about. You got to agree on rules regarding extended family. That's something that I was real big on. That's something that we were real big on. How my son was handled when he was with his dad's side of the family was comparable to how he was handled when he was with our side of the family. It was agreed upon. There were parallel rules and expectations. You can't go over here and act like a park ape and then be over here and no. You can't go to great grandmom's house over here and cut a fool, and great grandmom's house over here you got to go to church and Sunday school and no. There was mutual rules. The needs of your children are the priority, despite how challenging co-parenting can be. I cannot emphasize that enough. Cannot emphasize it enough. Here's the other thing that you need to know, and some of you probably know this already, but I do know people that don't because they think that their kids walk on water. I used to tell people all the time, please do not think that Andre walks on water. That boy, what? Yeah, he good grades and he's a decent kid and all that, but he ain't perfect. He got cracks. He does not walk on water. He does not walk on water. Kids will play you and they will pitch you. He used to say, this is what my son used to say when he was younger. If his dad or I would tell him no about something, because we were in alignment. If mom said no, that it was no. But because grandparents didn't always follow the rules, he would say, well, I'm just going to ask my mom and papa. And he would. So we were constantly tangoing with them because he was the only grandchild and the first grandchild on both sides of the family for 6 years. Ooh, Jesus. You got to make sure you get that extended family under control so they know how to act. Because the kids will play you. I'm almost done. Give me 5-10 more minutes. Balance. I want to circle back to the good cop, bad cop, and you have to have balance. Like, you can't just be the fun parent that doesn't require any rules and guidelines and all of that stuff. You're setting your kid up to fail if you do that. You cannot have order, structure, and discipline in one parent's house and you running around acting like a park ape, drinking and smoking and doing everything you're big enough to do at the other parent's house. You have to have balance. Just because you're the parent that's the non-custodial parent doesn't mean that everything and anything goes. You have to update often. There's a clinical term that we call triangulating. Stop triangulating your kids. Stop making the kids the talebearer and the source of information. And stop picking them for information. Your dad, girlfriend living there? Your mom's boyfriend living there? What's going on? Stop that. Stop it. Your dad's still working? He laid off. What time did your mom get home last night? Are y'all serious? You don't want them anymore. Remember? Why are you using your kid as a spy to get information? If there's critical things going on with either of you, whether it be job loss, job change, insurance benefits issues, financial shifts, illness, anything that is pertinent to the relationship, adults should be communicating that to each other, not through their children. I'm going to say this respectfully. I need y'all to grow the expletive up. Grow up. Please and thank you. Stop debilitating your children because you're biologically an adult and an emotional child. Stop. It's time to stop. I ain't judging you. I ain't criticizing you. I'm just telling you from a clinical perspective, it's time to stop the madness. You got to learn how to go high, and I don't mean go high. Stop it. I'm not talking about go, show you so much love. I'm not talking about that type high. I'm talking about when one goes low, you go high. This petty tit for tat, back and forth foolishness has got to stop. Be deliberate and intentional in highlighting the other parent's positive traits. There was something about them that attracted you to them. There was something about them that made you decide to have children with them. So why now, because y'all not together no more, everything and anything under the sun you can find fault with about them, you kicking their back in and telling your kids all about it. Stop it. So here's some things that I specifically do not want you to do, because it's going to piss me off. And I don't care. You don't have shit. I'm Dr. Pitts. And when it's all said and done, I might end up being your child's therapist when they're an adolescent or a young adult. Stop burdening your kids. Stop making your unresolved childhood trauma, your personal deficiencies, all of your baggage, all of your mess. Stop burdening your kids with that. Do not sabotage your child's relationship with the other parent because you in your feelings about stuff. Stop. Take ownership and responsibility for your junk. Admit that you feeling some type of way about whatever it is you feeling some type of way about. But stop putting all that BS on your kids. Stop jumping to conclusions. Dr. Spitz, what you mean by that? I mean, just because you hear something in the street or just because your kid comes home and tell you something, don't mean that it's all true. My grandmother used to say there's 3 sides to every story: his story, her story, and the truth. You might need to do some investigative discovery to find out if the information that has come your way is actual or distorted. But you know what so many of you do? You lose your daggone mind and fly off, you cussing folk out and threatening girlfriends, threatening, you doing all this crazy stuff because you done jumped to conclusions and took what the child said or what you heard in the street as gospel just to find out that it didn't go down the way that you was told that it went down. Stop. You're going to end up doing more damage. And you likely end up going to jail. But I know some of you don't care about going to jail, but you should. You should care about going to jail. Don't be imbalanced. Again, that's the good cop, bad cop. And then the last couple of things, and then I'll take any questions that you might have. Do not give in to guilt. Dr. Pitts, what you talking about? You running around here being controlled, manipulated, and dominated because your kid has convinced you that you're a horrible parent because you and daddy ain't together no more. And now you giving this child everything under the sun that you want. You know what you're doing? You're creating a child that is destructive entitlement. That child is going to end up to demonstrate destructive entitlement. They're going to think like, thank you, cuz. They're going to act like everybody owed them something. Everybody owed them something. They the victim. You were breeding a victim. They guilt tripping you. You did the best that you could for who you were at that particular point in time. And here you are, you my age, you 56. And you're 30-something and still guilt tripping you about how sorry your parents you were. If you don't sit the hell down and shut up and get a life, when you going to take responsibility and accountability for your own bad decisions? I did the best that I could for who I was and where I was at that particular point in time in my life. And as a parent, if you still effing up and you good and grown and your kids is good and grown, well, guess what, adult children? Put some boundaries in place. Just because you share DNA, you can honor your mother and your father as the Bible instructs us to do without continuing to be abused, neglected, or mistreated by them. How about that? Stop being guilt-tripped into, because you don't allow them to abuse you, you're not honoring them. The devil is a liar. That's not what that means. Don't accuse. Don't accuse. If there's something the other parent is doing that bothers you, be mature enough and responsible enough to address it in a healthy way. In other words, if you two cannot get along socially, you know what? Create a working business arrangement. We're going to raise these kids. We're going to do what we need to do. I don't have to like you. Matter of fact, I don't like you. I don't. But I love these kids. And they're half you. I said to my son's father one time many, many years ago that despite the fact that things didn't work out between us, flaws and all, he's a good dad. I could have done a lot worse. I thank God for the prayers he didn't answer. How about that? Because when I think about when I was doing my thing, I wasn't protecting nothing. I should have 25 kids for as much as I got it in unprotected. But I just have one. And I feel like God blessed me with the child that I have by the one that I have him by. And for that, I'm thankful. Effective parenting, folks, requires maturity, forgiveness, competency, accountability, a co-caregiver alliance, responsibility, and a whole lot of God don't help. But I know all y'all don't believe in God, so I'm not going to put my spiritual beliefs on you. But the word that I read says, train up a child in the way that he should go, and when they're old, they won't depart from the ways of the Lord. The word that I read says, provoke not your children unto wrath. But that's for you to decide. Co-parenting does not have to be contentious. When it is damaging to our children, regardless of how old they are. If anybody has any questions, I will gladly take them now. It does not appear that anybody has any questions. I'll wait a couple more minutes. Folk might be thinking. I'm not going to be impatient. All right, people. Oh, Dr. Pitts, how do you set a healthy boundary with your parent? Ooh, that's a great question. And it's hilarious because my mom is a trip. What I had to do with my mom is, first and foremost, I found that talking to her, just trying to talk to her about the behavior that she was demonstrating that was unacceptable to me wasn't working, because I was raised in a household and in a family where children are seen and not heard, and you respect your elders. And I had been grown for years, and she was still talking about taking the belt down off the refrigerator and beating me. What the hell did I do that at? Anywho, what I did was I started asserting myself in a respectful way, and I would, when a behavior would be demonstrated, I would, respectfully and gently say, Mom, I'm grown. I'm grown. And I know that you have a hard time with that because I'm your child, but I'm your adult child. And I've never disrespected you, and I need you to respect the fact that I'm your adult child. If you don't want to do that, that's fine, but then that also changes the parameters of our relationship, because I don't have to deal with being treated like a child when I'm good and grown. It's that simple. Moving forward, what I did was I went through a period where I was navigating life differently, and I was being more deliberate and intentional in taking responsibility and accountability for my thought life. And there was a window of time in my life where my mom was just chronically negative. And I'm not saying that to be judgmental or critical of her. I mean, it was what it was. She was just chronically negative. So I sort of shifted our relationship, and there was a period of time where the boundary that I put in place was I would only talk to her once, no more than twice a week, and that conversation was limited to 15 minutes, with the understanding that if the conversation started to go south, I would respectfully say, Mommy, I love, because I call my mom Mommy. I would respectfully say, Mommy, I love you, but I gotta go. And I would hang up. Then there were other times where there were conversations where there were particular topics that were off limits. I just, as an adult who, my private life is my private life, and I'm not under obligation to discuss everything with her, if she sort of continued to reiterate that conversation, I would again respectfully end the conversation, because I had already stated that conversation is off limits. I'm not having that discussion with you. And that was that. And what I tell my clients is, you don't have to be afraid to put boundaries in place. See, part of what hinders people from putting healthy boundaries in place, and the consequences that should be imposed for breaking them, is fear of abandonment, fear of rejection. Those are my signature themes. I've learned how to manage them because of the nature of my work and because I've been in therapy off and on since I was 18 years of age. So I've done an exorbitant amount of self work to get healthy and stay healthy. So even though at the root of my childhood trauma, there's a fear of abandonment and a fear of rejection, I don't allow that to control my life. So if you decide that you don't want to be a part of my life by choosing to disregard the healthy boundaries that I put in place, that is your choice, and I'm going to deny you access to me based upon your behavior, not me trying to be so muchy much, because I have a right to not be abused, neglected, or mistreated by anyone, even those with whom I share DNA. Hopefully that answers your question. Any others? All right. Well, I thank you all so very much for tuning in tonight. I think I did good. I didn't cuss like. So I appreciate all of you for taking time out of your evening to tune in, and I will see you back here next Thursday with another topic. Not sure what it's going to be. It's going to all depend on the themes that are coming up, but you also have the option of you can inbox me, you can message me, you can email me through my website, which is drlaurendpitts.com. If there's a particular topic that you would like for me to speak to, you can do that anonymously. I won't disclose your name when you submit the question. If if you don't want me to share who the question was presented from, I won't do that. And I would like that, actually. I would really like to hear the topics that that you all would like for me to touch on. It's like we said, there's many of you who won't come to therapy, so we decided to bring therapy to you. And another night's session went over a bit, but this information is so important, and I want to give it to you whether you decide to come into therapy or not. So feel free to send me your questions about whatever topic you want me to address, and I will do my level best to address them. I thank you all. Be blessed. Stay safe. Happy New Year, everyone. And I will see you next Thursday. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.